Welcome to the third installment of this beginners series into game development in Unreal Engine 4. Today we will be handling the subject of materials. Materials are what makes your 3D objects come alive. They are sort of the skin that you put on objects, normally referred to as texturing. A material, however, is not a texture. A texture is an image that you have, and the image itself is then used inside of a material, and then you use the actual material in Unreal Engine to put the skin on your objects. We will be going through a few different ways of handling materials today, and we will also try a few different ways of making materials to make very varied results for your 3D objects. So let's get started. Start up the engine. We will be using Unreal Engine 4.26 today if you want to follow along, and if you have a project open with the starter content, that will be helpful. However, it is not mandatory, because if you have a project without the starter content, we can just easily add it and then continue from there. I will show you how it's done. So let's assume this is a project without the starter content. All you have to do is you go to this add import button over here, and then you have add feature or content pack, and you go to the tab that says content packs, and from here you can select the starter content, add it to the project, and it will start downloading the files and adding it to your project. Okay, so to start off, let's create a few objects for us to actually have something to use our materials on. So let's start off with finding under basic a cube. We drag that out into the world and align it so it looks good against the surface. And next to that we can bring out a sphere, drag that up a bit as well. And lastly we will drag in a cylinder, and we'll place it like that for now. Okay, so the very first thing that we will do is we will apply a material on a object in the world. So what you do is you go over here to the file structure, and if you don't have the file structure open like this, all you need to do is click this button over here, and it should be looking like this. So let's say we have a material already created. We click on the content folder. This means that we are now positioned in the most root position of the file structure that we have available in the project. Then we go over here to this search bar here, and let's say that we know about a particular material, and we know it's like something with gold. So we'll type in gold. Now we happen to get a material here. M_material is generally the naming convention that is used for describing a material, so that you know that it's a material right straight off the bat. Another way to identify that it is a material is that it will have this green underlying bar under the picture belonging to the icon. Next to the metal of gold we have something called T_metal gold, and it has a red underline for the picture, just below the picture. This is a texture. So if we double click on this, this is what the gold texture in this case looks like. So it has a bunch of properties to it, making it look this way. And this image is part of what makes this material look the way that it does. So let's start off with adding this material to our scene. You hold down left mouse button on the material, and then you drag it, and then you drop it on our little sphere. That's it. That's all you need to do. And look, it's turned into a golden ball. Very nice. However, you might need to create your own materials at some point. So how do you do that? Well, let's first start with doing this a little bit structured. We'll remove the gold search by clicking the X over here. That will reset our search. We will click on content. We will right click on content and we will select new folder in the top. We will call this folder material. Now that we've created a material folder, let's create a material. So we're gonna do a brick wall today. So let's right click over here in this box where it says drop file, so right click. And from here we will choose the green icon here that says material next to it. It will ask us to choose a name. We will go with the naming convention that we spoke about earlier, so M underscore, and then we'll call it brick wall and press enter. So this brick wall will now have a preview of what the material looks like, and it doesn't look like much, it just looks like a gray ball because it gets a neutral standard material to begin with before we do anything. So the next step for us is to have some textures to this material so that we can get the look that we want. So how do we do that? Well, we go back to clicking on the content folder, so we get into the root. From here we go to the search bar again and we search for brick. And among the results that we get, we want to pick the one that says T brick clay new underscore D. And we also want to pick the one that has the same name except it has an N as a suffix for it. So these two are the ones that we're interested in today. Once you have both of them selected, drag them over to your material folder and then release above the material folder. You'll get some options of what to do here, and we want to do move here today. Okay, we go back to the material folder and now we can see that we have our textures over here. And we reset the search by clicking on the X in the end. Alright, next step. Now we want to open the material. We do that by double clicking on the M brick wall material here. This will open up a new window for us describing the material. Now this view that we have is what's called the material editor. It has a lot of common buttons like in the top bar that we are sort of familiar with from the main view in the engine, but it also has a bunch of other things all around. But for the most part we will be ignoring most of it today because we're just gonna go into a very basic understanding of how materials work. Unreal Engine has something that's called PBR materials, which stands for physically based rendering materials. What that means is they have properties so that they can simulate looking like real world materials. So they will have properties like, for example here, metallic. And the metallic property will be a number between 0 or 1, usually just a 0 or a 1 and not something in between, to indicate that the material that you're creating is either a metal, like gold, or not, like glass, for example. And in addition to that, you also have the specular, which is related to how light is reflected from this. You also have roughness, which is also related to how light will bounce off the material. But for roughness it's more like a glass would be something that's very smooth and it has a roughness of 0, while something like concrete would have on a microscopic level very rugged or very uneven surface meaning that the light would scatter more randomly than it would against a glass, for example. There are some other properties here as well. We will not go into most of them today, since we will keep it sort of simple, but we will be touching on base color, which is well, you could say that it's the color of the material, but it can be more advanced than that, and you'll see that in a while. We will also be touching upon emissive color, which is a way to bring about sort of a bright light effect on a material. We also have something that's called normal, which is a way to fake that your material has depth in it, to make light scatter from it in a way so that it looks like it has depth for the viewer of the material, even though it is just a completely straight surface. Okay, that might be a little bit much to take in at once. It might be feeling a little bit advanced and overwhelming, but we'll go through everything step by step here, and it will probably become much more clear. So let's start with our brick wall here. So to navigate inside of this view, you can either right click and hold down right mouse button and drag around to move the area around, or you can use your mouse scroll wheel inwards and outwards to zoom in and out, and that alone will give you pretty much all the control that you need to move around and structure things properly here. From here we will be going back to these two textures that we have. We will be left clicking on the first one and then holding down Control and left clicking the second one. Then we will drag them and drop them on the background over here. What happens now is that the material automatically makes two texture samples for us. One for the one that's the brick wall, and one that has the suffix of N that we will be talking about in a little while. But for now, what we can do is we move our mouse to this little pin here that says RGB. That stands for red, green, blue, which also you can see separate pins for here down below. This represents what the image looks like in this texture. So if we were to hold down left mouse button on this pin and then drag while holding the mouse button down, going to base color and releasing mouse button, we have now made a connection between this texture sample and the base color of the material. What this means is that we have now fed in that this texture is what we want to see in this material when we apply it to something in the world. So let's go ahead and do that for now. So we'll go here and press save. And then let's drag this window up here to the top and dock it over here and then release it. Then we go back to the map we were on before. So now we have created our brick wall material. All we have to do now is the same as before. We'll just hold down the mouse button on the left hand side, drag it over here, drop it on our little cube, and then we'll navigate to see it up close. If you want to reduce the sensitivity of your camera speed, you can do it up here. Something like 3 or 2 might be good for these fine adjustments here. So here we can see the texture that this cube has now received. And it's looking pretty good. It looks like a nice brick wall, right? Here is where normals come in. So what we do is we highlight this or select this object. We'll hold down Alt key and drag it down along the axis and create a copy of this. And we'll put them snugly next to each other. So now we have two cubes here looking like a one piece of object actually, because the materials are tiling in such a way that they are endlessly looping. And now we want to change this material slightly. So what we do is we right click on this material that says brick wall, we say duplicate, and let's rename it to brick wall normal. We will double click on that material, and this will be an exact copy of the one we created earlier. Now, to show you the power of normals, this here is what's called a normal map. It is a texture that has information on it that the engine can read as what it's supposed to fake as depth. So what we do is the same way we added the RGB from the first texture sample to base color, we will be dragging from this node here on the normal map into the normal pin. Then we'll click save and let it save it properly. Then we'll go back to the map again, and then we'll drag this new material that we've created, and you can already see that it's looking slightly different from the one we created before. We'll drag this on the second cube that we had and drop it. And you can see the stark difference between them and what normal maps can do for your objects. Okay, so now we have done two objects here. We created a gold ball and we created a brick wall. Let's make something more sci-fi and fun. Take the cylinder and scale it down. Uncheck the snapping for scaling so that we can do it more fluidly, and then make sure that your cursor is marking all or the middle box so that it will scale uniformly down. Then we'll make it approximately, let's say, this size. From here we change to transform by pressing the W key. We hold down Alt, we drag up another cylinder. We scale it down slightly further, uniformly of course. Let's say something like that. We go to scale along the Z-axis. Let's say something like that. Then we transform it. And we'll put it like that. That looks like a shoddy lightsaber. So now we need to create a material to create this lightsaber. So what we'll do is we'll go back to the materials by right-clicking, selecting material, naming it M_lightsaber. We open up the material. So now we will be actually adding some nodes for ourselves for once. What we will be doing now is we will be using the node we spoke about earlier that's called emissive color. This is the node we can use to create a sort of glowing effect like a lightsaber would have. So if we were to right click on the background anywhere here, we can see that we get a context box showing us all the different things that we can do inside the material editor in different ways. For now, we're going to add a color, and there's a hotkey for that. So by holding down your number 3 key on the keyboard and then left clicking somewhere on the background, you'll create what's called a color or a vector node. You can see that it's a color or vector node by the fact that it has 3 values to it, which corresponds to the red, green and blue that we were talking about earlier. Or since Unreal is so beautiful, it could also be a vector for X, Y and Z. So from here, let's choose a color that we like. So me, for example, I might want to pick a green lightsaber. So we'll go to the green here and we'll put in a value of 1. Press enter or click OK. So now we have assigned a color to this node. From here we can drag this pin into the emissive color pin. Press save. And then what we want to do is we want to left click on this tab and hold it and then drag a little bit so we get this separate window. We'll expand it a little bit for our convenience and we'll move it around a little bit. We go back to the map over here. We'll make sure to navigate so that we can actually see the object that we want to put the material on. So now we can see a preview here of what the material looks like. We drag the material to the lightsaber and we drop it. So there's our green lightsaber. But it doesn't look anything like a lightsaber should, right? The reason for this is that we have just put in colors here that are within the normal range of colors. But when it comes to emissive colors, you want to go beyond zeros and ones. So if we were to say, for example, that we have something with the strength of 25 in green and press OK. You can now see that it will be very bright glowing over here, and if we press save now, it will apply the material to our lightsaber here, and it looks much more like it should be. We can now close this window and navigate back a little bit and behold the different things we have done. So with these simple steps we have already made these objects come alive in a big way. So materials are a really great and powerful way to get creative in Unreal Engine, and we will be going more into detail about materials at a later stage. But for now I think this should be okay as an introduction into the world of materials. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you liked the video, leave a like. If you did not like the video, leave a dislike. Leave any suggestions or comments down below of what you think of the video or what you would like to see in the future. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. In the next video, we will be starting to learn about how to make game logic by using what is called blueprints. That is all for now. Keep on learning. Take care.